Ciao a tutti. Today, let's talk about pizzica, which is a type of dance in southern Italy, its history, its origins, and as much as I can put into this very short video, because we can talk a long time about this. But the image above, you can see behind me here, is from Athanasius Kircher, who was a German Jesuit in the 17th century. This is one of the, put my head here, this is one of the very first images that we have visually of a pizzica, or what he was recording as a type of tarantella in southern Italy from Puglia. And you could see in the image here we have the spider, the very classic image of the spider. We have the dancing with the swords. We have the violinist over here. And these are all very typical images that we would see later on with pizzica scherma, with the knives at least, and the image of the spider and this melodic dance happening. Another image by him is here. You could see the very first musical notations, very old-looking musical notations that we might not recognize today, but this is some of the very first recordings of the music itself, the 6/8 rhythm of the pizzica. And again, we see the images of the spiders, the tarantism, the tarantismo, and this starts to produce this visual representation of what pizzica is, what tarantella is, and it all goes back to this image of the spider. Why the spider is the most associated with it, there's many reasons which we could talk a long time about, but one of the biggest leading myths behind why the spider is associated with it is because people, especially women in southern Italy, were bitten by a spider. Typically it was the wolf spider. Some scholars think it might have been actually a black widow, who knows, but the idea was it was a spider who taught the people to dance and who infected them with its venom. And in order to get the venom out, you needed to dance the pizzica, or otherwise the tarantella, to get the venom out. This dance was a form of music therapy in its time, and the reason the spider is probably the most prominent is because of the name tarantella, coming from the old Italian word for spider, and the nature of the dance. Sometimes people would dance on the ground to imitate the spider in a very trance-like state. And this goes back to the myth of Arachne. Arachne being the spider woman of ancient Greek myth, who Athena turned into a spider. And there are many myths and legends and folklore about how the people originally learned to dance from the spider. The musical instruments associated with it, there's many, but one of the biggest instruments is the drum, or the tamburello. And the tamburello, as you can see up here, it's from an ancient painting, or an ancient mosaic, some kind of fresco. You can see one of the drummers, it's a woman up there on the top right, leading this procession of Dionysus or Bacchus. And the drum becomes most associated with him. It's a goatskin drum, the goat being one of his sacred animals. And originally, people would dance, mainly women would dance underneath the full moon, spreading seeds with the drum itself. It would later become a musical instrument. And the goat slain at the end of the harvest season, representing Bacchus, would be used for the drum. So the drum became a living talisman of the god himself. And with the dance and the music, it was this calling back of the harvest, calling back of the spring, the summer, when crops would grow again, when people could eat, essentially. It was this calling back of a time of plenty. And so the pizzica and the tarantella in general, this music, becomes associated with him. And Bacchus was a very lively god, a god of rebirth, a god of wine. This is a god of the common people, the plebs in ancient Rome. He was a very wild god. And we have records of the bacchanalia that was made illegal by the Romans. It was too freeing for people. They didn't like it. The elites didn't like it. And so a lot of these traditions went underground, popped back up periodically, and especially during the Middle Ages, when people started to dance and have big parties like this in the Bacchanalia, and we all of a sudden we see the dancing plague of Europe pop out. And there is these wild dancing, people are going into these trances, the church didn't know what to do with this, and it ends up later on becoming what Athenius Kutcher writes down as tarantism, tarantismo. It becomes a disease, and from the outside world. But from the inside world in southern Italy, this was a tradition of not only dance and music, but it was a tradition of healing too. The reason St. Paul becomes associated with Tarantismo and Pizzica in general is because on his feast day, June 29th, this is around the time of the summer solstice. And the folklore behind that is because during that time, it's a very hot and dry time of the year, the season. So the web of the spider becomes aggravated because it's cold and moist. And so this is when the tarantati become the most agitated within them from their venom. So the spider becomes the most agitated. There's more animals than the spider, but the spider becomes the most prominent symbol of this whole tradition. There was other animals such as crabs and snakes and scorpions and things like this, but the spider becomes the most prominent. And today, the spider is the most prominent symbol. But St. Paul is someone who can free you from poisons, who battled the snakes in Malta. When he first landed in Malta, he was named or believed to be a god or the son of a god, such as Bacchus or Hercules. He comes to Puglia, and then obviously he's spreading the word of Christianity. So, the old religion becomes replaced by the new religion of Christianity, and St. Paul himself takes on that role essentially of Bacchus, who it was most associated with the drum and these dances before that. The ancient myth of Arachne also is connected to this, as I said prior, as the Spider Woman. It's really not known why she's so associated with this tradition necessarily. At some point in time, maybe it's because Dionysus and Ariadne, she has the web or the rope in the labyrinth and her spindle. It might be related to this, and a mixing of mythologies. There's other legends in folklore about a woman, a spider woman on the beach waiting for her lover at sea in southern Italy, and God transforms her into a spider, because of her unrequited love and grief, and those emotions become very associated with Pizzica. There's other legends in folklore about how, going all the way back to the Odyssey, and Odysseus was seduced by the mermaids before they had tails, and the muses cursed them to have fish legs so they couldn't dance the tarantella and the pizzica and all these things anymore. They couldn't do any dancing, and they were cursed to be like that. And so the dance moved on to the people, and so the people took it up. It was a dance from the gods. There's all kinds of different folklore behind why the spider becomes associated with this dance in general. But again, there's other animals associated with it as well. But the spider becomes the most prominent, mostly in folklore, because people learn to dance from spiders. During the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the myth of Arachne was very well known, because you could see this too in Dante's Inferno. Arachne makes an appearance in Dante's Inferno, and during the Neapolitan Enlightenment, they're talking about different colors of spiders and scorpions. There was a common belief during the Renaissance that basil connected to Scorpio would cause scorpions in the brain, eating too much basil. That's not today in Italy, because a lot of people love basil. So that surely didn't stick around as a poison. But this whole idea that venom could cause this type of ailment, or whether it wasn't a real scorpion or real spider, it was spiritually or somehow symbolic of this type of ailment to happen to a person. This all led up until the past few centuries, where we were seeing recorded by Ernesto de Martino in his famous book The Land of Remorse, where people were gathering to play music. People would dance on a white sheet. You could see this woman here dancing on a white sheet to be freed from the venom of the spider. to be freed from what ailed her that way. And she would have to dance for 3 days. Some regions said more. Some towns said you have to dance for a week, 14 days. If you dance more than a week, you won't be cured. There was differing beliefs, but they had to dance this out. The reason why it's so significant that this was still happening up until really the past century, and even people believe in this today, there was a precedence or a lineage of tradition going all the way, probably back, it's debated, but probably back to the days of Orphism, and even before that into prehistoric times, of this idea that there was a way to dance out and a way that music could cure you. And it's going all the way back to these Bacchic mysteries of trance and somewhat of performative theatrical performance of getting rid of what ails you, or that you are somewhat either possessed by a spirit, or you're somehow possessed by some kind of poison that is on you. The Tarante, the spiders, were believed to be souls of purgatory, and those are ancestors that would take the forms of animals, which is another reason behind why the animals were either the spider, the scorpion, or whatever. They're nocturnal animals, typically of the night. They live under the ground where the ancestors are, again, souls of purgatory. And these are the animals that would bite you. The belief was not to kill the spider or the animal because it would have children and it would come after you. So you had to dance through it. You had to embrace the music and get over what ailed you, and to get over this communication with the animal. It was when the Catholic Church got involved, it was seen as something that was evil. But before that, it was seen as something more of what would be mostly associated with or closely related to the idea of the ancient Greek idea of daimon, of Plato, and somewhat like a guardian angel, but with a vicious nature, where ideas would come through, where lessons would come through. It later began to become something that was vicious, borderline evil that you had to get rid of. And that's why you ask 10 different people, what does this tradition mean to you, in terms of the more philosophical aspects, not the folk dance aspect, but these deeper origins of it, and you'll get 10 different answers. And through time, it manifested and transformed into what we have today as Pizzica. And, today what you have is, a very folk dance of people gathering in community. But there's this whole deeper aspect that led to the development of Pizzica. And as you see here, today you have people dancing in the streets, dancing for festivals, Pizzica, and it's very lively, it's very fun. It's a way to embrace community. That's what we always have to remember today. It's always a way to embrace community. It's a way to get people together, talking, communicating, having a conversation, really invoking kind of your ancestry or your heritage. But it's important to also know the history and the folklore behind the dance. And I'm sorry, but I cannot go over the whole thing in this very short video. It's hours upon years, actually, of study in terms of the books, oral tradition, speaking to people in southern Italy, speaking to people even in America that came from Italy, or their parents were from Italy or whatever, that will tell you stories about these dances. And we'll say, in whispers and kind of in secret, my grandmother was tarantata, and things like this, and the things that they have to tell you. And it's interesting how so much of it is very on par with Ernesto's work and other work like Andrea Romanazzi and many other authors who have written about this tradition and the origins of this tradition. And there's many people that are really interested in the spiritual aspects of the tradition, the ancient spiritual aspects of the tradition, the medieval aspects, and even today, how we think about that part of the tradition from a spiritual or philosophical perspective, psychological perspective. And then also, some people just want to do the dance itself, which is amazing because it brings community together. And whenever you do dance pizzica, or you play the music of pizzica on that 6/8 rhythm, you're really tapping into that dance of the spider, that very ancient dance of Arachne, that dance of, letting go of your woes and worries and anything that ails you that way, and just giving it to the community, giving it, to the community to help you, and to have that conversation of not independence, but codependence with your fellow people around you, your fellow community. And that's what's, I think, so important in our modern age of technology and doing everything on social media, where we don't have that same community third place anymore to talk and embrace one another. That's what's really most important about this dance. So whether you just want to do it for community, or you really like the more philosophical, historical, folkloric, and spiritual aspects of it, it's all very valid, and it's all very valid to know, and you should know all of it. And, moving forward with what this means for us today is just, learn from somebody who knows, learn from your community, so we can all dance together and play together, and have those deep conversations that need to be told and need to be heard. That's what it's mostly about, community. At least for me, that's what it's mainly about. But it's also to remind you to never deflect, I guess, what bothers you, and to always embrace what you're going through, and know that you're not alone. That's what the dance is really about too. Know that you're not alone in anything that's bothering you. Move through it. Never run from it. And that's the lesson of the spider. Never run from it. Otherwise you get trapped in the web, and you get trapped in that web of lies, and that web of seclusion. You become the victim, and the host is the spider, and she will suck you dry. She will drain you. And to dance is to get out of that web and to be totally free. That's really the core meaning of this dance at its heart. So, everyone, now we gave a little lesson on pizzica. I hope you liked the video. Like and share and subscribe. Do whatever you do. And let me know in the comments if you want to know anything more about this dance. I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. This is such a short little intro to it, a little overview. But let me know any other things you want me to talk about, whether that be tarantella in general, tamariata, the drum itself, even a little bit about the other instruments associated with it, or any of the more different types of folklore. Or if you really liked anything I said in this video, let me know if you want me to explore any other topics related to this, because there's many tangents and subtopics I can create just from this video alone. So goodbye for now.